You had the wing-feathered sun disk, Shamash, who was the god of justice and morality. And then you had Ishtar, also known as Venus, Aphrodite, Ashtoreth, Athtar, Attar, and others. This god could be could be male in some cultures, could be female in other cultures, but always associated with the star Venus. So could be both male and female. The Kaaba, we'll get to that little clock here, so I'm well aware of that. So now notice Venus, though, is a goddess of love and war. Bear in mind the war god. Here he is again with the trinity of Babylonian gods. Now, Tamar's influence. So Tamar's position may have forced or stimulated the other town states of the oasis of Arabia Deserta to partake to some degree in the civilizations of the surrounding countries in the northeast, the northwest, and the south, while trying to preserve or reestablish their independence. That's from the Encyclopedia of Islam. Now, interestingly, different scripts were used and developed. Even the clansmen of the nomadic tribes knew how to write. This is from the Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 1. So writing was actually fairly common within Arabia at the time. Oddly enough, after the arrival of Muhammad, there was nothing. So the general conclusion that I would draw at this point is that they destroyed the records. If writing was common, because numerous scripts were found, numerous scripts are known to have existed in that region, then where did all the documentation go? Now, there are several important archaeological sites on the Arab Persian Gulf coast. They mention here surviving documents written in Aramaic, and Aramaic was the mother tongue of part of the population, especially the elites. A large number of Aramaic-speaking churchmen and religious authors in the Nestorian church came from the Gulf. There were texts in Sabaean script, which were relatively common. In the Gulf, as in the north of the Hejaz, texts in foreign languages, Akkadian, Imperial, Aramaic, Nabatean, Greek, and Latin are common. In southern Arabia, 5 inscriptions have been found in Ge'ez, which is classical Ethiopic, 2 in Hebrew, 3 Sabaic Nabatean bilinguals, and a Greek Latin one, and 1 inscription in Greek, 1 in Nabatean, and 1 in Palmyrenian. There's also graffiti in Greek, Nabatean, Palmyrenian, Indian, and Ge'ez graffiti. So this was a melting pot due to all of the trading they did. So if they were literate and if they were writing, it's interesting that there's no records within the Islamic period. Library burning by Muslims. Yes, I'd have to agree with you there. I would have to agree with you there. So let's continue. In the early polytheistic period, the Hadrami, now the Hadramaut, this is in Yemen, this is central Yemen, south of Arabia, shows a close similarity to other South Arabian areas dominated by the astral triad of Moon, Sun, and Venus star, except that the moon god in Hadramaut bore the distinctive name Sin, borrowed from Babylonian religion. He's commonly referred to as Sin of Ilm, and it has been conjectured that the latter term is the name of the principal shrine of this deity. Okay, Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 3. Now, let's jump to Haran for a moment, the home of the patriarchs. There's a lot to be said about Abraham. I'm not going to cover that at length here. So Haran exists in Turkey today, sitting on top of the old one from the Old Testament period. Near Haran are villages that bear the names of Abraham's great-grandfather and his grandfather, Serug and Nahor. Haran was the father of Lot. The cities of Ur and Haran both had the moon god as their main deity, and Terah, father of Abraham, worshipped other gods, and he moved his family from Ur to Haran. Now, this interesting biblical passage, Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they were the merchants of thy hand, in lambs and rams and goats. It says here, the traffickers of Sheba, they were thy traffickers. They traded for thy wares. They mention Haran and Canna and Eden, the traffickers of Sheba. So now we're talking about Turkey, right? Northern Mesopotamia, Turkey, and they're referring to the traffickers from Sheba, which means there was trade all that way from Yemen all the way up to Turkey and back down again. So Ashur was as thine apprentice in traffic. These locations are all in northern Mesopotamia. And they are mentioning here the traffickers from Sheba. So there was trade, there was communication between these regions. And Haran is close to Gobekli Tepe too. Yeah, it's about 40 kilometers from Gobekli Tepe. And as I mentioned last week, Gobekli Tepe is not the only, and is not even now the oldest temple in the world. There's one even older than Gobekli Tepe. I showed last week a slide with about 15 or 18 temples like Gobekli Tepe, part of a major complex of shrines all linked to the same religion. So, and apparently, according to one source that I read, there's dozens of these, dozens. And I showed, I think, something like 15 or 18 of those in the last show. So let's have a look here. This area here, as you know, is Makaraba. You've got Aksum here. This is Hadramaut here in Yemen. Well, to the east, this is Hadramaut here. You'll see this is the central part. This is Sabah, where the Sabaeans are. Now, it seems to be of great importance for the cultural and religious development of the Arabs that Nabonidus of Babylonia conquered Tema, and he made an expedition as far as Yathrib. Yathrib, as we know, is Medina. And he said he built a palace in Tema and made this the center of an archaistic religion and cult around the Aramaean moon god Sin, perhaps with the sun disk resting in the crescent as the main symbol of this religion. There should be investigations on the close resemblances between this cult and that of South Arabia and Ethiopia. So this is the cult of Babylon. Understand? They're saying here that the cult of Babylon brought by King Nabonidus is very close to the cult of South Arabia and Ethiopia. Sin was the state god of Hadramaut since the earliest inscriptions of this state. So Sin was found all the way from Turkey through northern Mesopotamia, all the way down through Medina, all the way down into Yemen. Sin was the state god across all of Arabia, into Syria, into Mesopotamia. That includes Iraq and Turkey. Now, briefly on Terra. So Gobekli Tepe represented a change in thought by archaeologists, which now say that religion was the source of civilization, not the other way around. That's very interesting, and I would tend to agree. Right. So now Elam, name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews. Variants of Elams were Era, Etera, El Makkah, and that's Al Makkah back again, the moon god of the Saba, Al Makkah. And I found a few things about Al Makkah. And Terah. Terah is the father of Abraham. So his name is that of the moon god. Yam, Babylonian sea god killed by Baal. Yom, just thought you might find that interesting. So the name Terah means ibex, which in ancient times was a well-known symbol for the moon on account of the curved horns. Sykes wrote that Terah was a theophoric name. It's like a name of a god. Terah, ancient Semitic name for the moon, equated with Terah, father of Abraham. The moon was also known as Eterah and Jerah. Jerah has references within the Bible. Was it a military-style religion, Lloyd? Yes, they all were. I will get to that. Elam, name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews. So there you go, much confirmation of that. Abraham's younger brother was named after the city Haran. Haran was the city of the moon.